Coming up today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, Zach Lowe is back. Did he talk about the Hornets? No, at least he didn't make any jokes about the Hornets, but there are a few local angles we can find in his appearance on the Bill Simmons pod. Will a team trade for LaMelo Ball? Will a team call about LaMelo? Then we'll get to the Sicko Satchel and the mock draft all today, LOH.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on everyhornetsboxscore.com. That's a Substack. You can also find his subtext information in the show notes of the podcast that we produce every day. You could also listen to him on Locked On NBA, Matt Moore and Hayes. He's doing a bunch of stuff. I'll even tell you about a newsletter he's writing in just a moment. I'm Walker Mehl. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Okay, time now for the newsletter. The newsletter is what we really should be calling
it. Well, it has been this season. Not because of who is writing it, but because of the results I've had to write about.
You wanted to make that very clear. It's not loser letter.
It's not
because
loser
then
letter.
that would insinuate that it's you. The lose letter, now we can just be writing about losing. Introducing the Locked On Hornets Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now. LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Doug, is it a where were you moment when it was announced that Zach Lowe was coming back to the basketball universe, that we were going to have smart X's and O's talk again, that this community was starving for, that, what we were deprived of ever since ESPN underwent all these layoffs, and Zach Lowe was one of the unfortunate casualties in the ESPN layoffs. Were you reacting just as much as everybody else was, or are you too wrapped up in what you got going on to where you're the only basketball podcaster that you listen to?
Well, yes to your last question there, because you asked me if I've listened to the 2-hour podcast that he did with Bill Simmons, and my answer was no, because I was burying myself in amazing NBA basketball last night. I prep for shows. I do other people's podcasts. I'm down with OPP. So, yeah, I've got a lot going on right now. I'm glad that Zach is finally back, because I value his content. But I don't know that I don't know if this opinion is unpopular, but I value his writing. Like, I enjoy reading him more than I ever enjoyed diving into the Low Post podcast. And so while I'm excited, I hope he gets to write for the Ringer, because I would always like the 10 things more than the podcast.
It would be you. Just like, read
the
book. Read the book. The movie is so much worse. The movie doesn't even compare to the book. You have to read it. Good news for you, though. They are talking about some writing opportunities for Zach, but they are bringing back a Zach Lowe podcast. It's not the Low Post. It's the Zach Lowe Show. So pretty standard there. Just stick with
better
the name.
No, it's not. See, you think it's standard, but I'm just going to tell you the rhythmic nature of the Zach Lowe Show is much better, in my opinion, than the Low Post podcast. By the way, we're devaluing the Low Post. Low Post doesn't even exist anymore in basketball. So the Zach Lowe Show, I think, is a much better name.
Hey, bigs are coming back. Low Post, it is back. Charles Lee just experimented with it, having Nurk and Mark Williams out there. Houston is running 2 bigs. It's coming back, and so is Zach Lowe. Zach Lowe Show. Congrats. Clearly not a where were you moment, but I was starving for some Lowe content. I mean, I think he's the best to marry entertainment in terms of what you can learn from as well. I think he does a really good job. Anyways, he's back. He's on the Ringer, and he appeared on the Bill Simmons podcast. It was his first appearance before he dives into his own content on his new show, the Zach Lowe Show. So I was listening for some Hornets content. Could we get anything? Could we get a mention? Not really. No. Even if there were a few Hornets mentions, oftentimes they're the butt of a Bill Simmons joke, especially if you go on the Bill Simmons pod, which, hey, the Hornets have earned that right in all of their losing. I'm not one that gets all that mad about it, to be honest with you. The Hornets got to get out of this hole that they've dug themselves in for quite some time. All that to say, all that to say, they talked about a few interesting things surrounding some small market teams. And the Hornets were brought up one time. And I forget exactly what the context was. But Bill brought up something that we brought up on Wes and Walker that you got frustrated with because you thought it was an original idea. So now this thing has been talked about 3 separate times. The idea of a LaMelo Ball-Ja Morant swap. Okay, so that happened, right? Bill Simmons said he would love to be in the room where the meetings were held for both teams. If one of the teams called the other and said, how would you be interested in a Ja-LaMelo swap? Like, who says no? How far would those talks go? It'd be very interesting to him, is what he was talking about.
Yes, but I think the 2 people would enter the room, whoever the representative, the Grizzlies is, I know Zach Kleiman, because his name has been in the news recently for firing Taylor Jenkins, like 9 games before the regular season was over on a team that's like 5th seeded in the Western Conference anyway. He gets in a room with Jeff Peterson, and I feel like they would finish each other's sentence. It's like, why are we here? It's like, do you want to discuss? And then the other one says, a trade for, and then the other one says, LaMelo and Ja? Yeah! All right.
Mm-hmm. That's how it would go. So it's been a terrible season for Ja. It's not gone much better post All-Star break for LaMelo. It is what it is. You're basically doing the change of scenery thing, whatever, right? I guess we could set this up, Doug, but I guess I know I'm going to get a lot of comments in the YouTube section. We're both going to get those YouTube comments that say, here you go trying to trade LaMelo again. I just want to prep people that this is coming in waves. The guy's out for the regular season, the rest of the season. The Hornets are tanking. They're going to be in a situation where they're going to have a great shot at having a top 3 pick and as good as odds as anybody else of having the number 1 overall pick. And so there looks to be the opportunity for a reset, which means people are going to be calling about LaMelo. The vultures are circling.
I think people have already called about LaMelo. Let's get real.
The reports are out there.
And I think reports are that the Hornets are not really interested in those conversations, which I always say, like, the best way to run for president before you actually declare is to say, I don't want to run for president. Like, nobody likes the person that says, yes, I would love to run for president. Nobody votes for that person.
A little power hungry, buddy. Chill out. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So you want to keep that as close to the chest as possible until you actually decide to run. Same thing with trading a superstar or a star level player in this league. That is your number 1 guy, is that you don't do that until you don't say that. You don't whisper about that. You don't really even pretend to want to have the conversation until you are actually ready to have that conversation. Because once it gets out, then it spirals. Say what you want to about the Luka deal. It was a terrible deal. But if you're going to do it, that's the way you do it. Backdoor it, and you don't do it until the moment you do it. Because if it gets out that you're trying to trade Luka, that just causes all kinds of problems and headaches for you.
Again, it's taken a while to introduce this topic, but the real question is, what kind of teams are going to be calling for LaMelo? Like, what teams would it make sense for? Because I'm trying to think of how many teams would be interested, right? It would make sense that teams are interested in still a very young, offensive, creative, one of the best passer type of players in the NBA who makes a big difference offensively, especially when he's taking the right kind of shots. And in my opinion, has the right kind of talent around him, period, around him. That's the situation I want to see LaMelo in again. I'd love to see it in a Hornets uniform. I have been saying I do not want to shop LaMelo, but I'm also self-aware and understanding of reality enough that this is an absolute possibility. What kind of teams make sense to you, Doug? And we can continue this into the next segment, but what kind of teams make sense to you? If Memphis is one, what's
Memphis
the makeup of a franchise?
Let me just say Memphis is not one. That's okay. What I can go ahead and get out of the way in this first segment is that I just think a trade for Ja is a trade for another set of problems. Because I think what the Hornets need more than anything, with or without LaMelo Ball, is an infusion of maturity and seriousness that comes with teams that are actually ready to compete. And I think you have to supplement LaMelo Ball with that, because just off the floor, he's had a few difficulties, but I just don't think he's not a player that's going to just like vocally lead a locker room. I think he's going to lead by example. I think people understand how much he wants to win and how hard he works. You can't really market that player as much. I mean, he's had a few things where he's been on camera and done some things where it's like, okay, that might be a difficult player to market.
He just cusses all the time. He just
cusses.
Won't stop cussing.
He flips off the camera, and again, whatever you think about those things, it makes it difficult to market that kind of player on a wider scale. You're not solving any of those problems by bringing Ja Morant here, who is still, to this day, after all the problems with having guns and fake guns, and is doing gun symbols directly at the Golden State bench in this last game, and people caught it on camera, and it's like, oh my, you'd think of after everything that Ja's been through that he wouldn't even insinuate that kind of thing. And so that's just trading one headache for another, and I don't love it. And yeah, Ja Morant has had his fair share of injuries, and his pick and roll game isn't as good anymore.
Short of what happened, I guess, a year and a half ago with the Instagram Live and the inability to not do anything on social media that would be controversial, just the basketball problems, the lack of explosion because of all the injuries, because you don't know if he's going to play. If you move off of LaMelo, it's because of the injury history. That's the reason you move off of LaMelo. So you would not want to welcome another injury-ridden point guard that also had his best years 3 years ago. Who does that sound like? It sounds like the exact same player. That particular evaluation of Ja sounds exactly like LaMelo, that he's been injury-ridden the past 3 seasons, and his best year was his second or third year in the league. So no, I'm totally with you. It's something people are tossing out there, but I'm here to tell you, no, it wouldn't make sense for the Hornets. I actually think there might be some sense that it makes for Memphis. I don't think it would make any sense for the Hornets to do a LaMelo-Ja swap with whatever salary filler, trade buffer, or draft buffer, whatever. That wouldn't make much sense. What teams would make sense? We can continue this. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
What are the teams that would look at Charlotte and think, yeah, I want to take the chance on a healthy LaMelo Ball? Please take these draft picks. We'll get to that in just a moment on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Baseball season is in full swing. See, once I saw the play on words, I knew it wasn't basketball, and it helps when you can read. There's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. You could build your lineup. You could pick Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run. You could pick Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. Pick Shohei for anything. A 100-mile fastball, stolen base, a 500-foot homer. Just pick Shohei for anything. He'll probably do it. Fast and simple. Setting up a lineup takes less than 60 seconds with Prize Picks. When you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure, and they give you exclusive promos. You could always take advantage of Taco Tuesday, where Prize Picks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
How about win a World Series? Shohei done that yet?
He has, actually. Yeah, win a championship. You know so much about basketball. That's never actually, just hit you in the face like it did. But Shohei actually has won a World Series. Dodgers are like 6-0, 7-0. Anyways, we'll let Locked On Dodgers, Locked On Braves.
Oh, he's a Dodger now. Yeah. I haven't followed baseball in a while.
Yeah, he's been a Dodger. You would be fascinated by his contract setup. A lot of deferred money to circumvent the salary cap. Anywho, who would be trading for LaMelo Ball? If it's not the Grizzlies, because the Hornets would be the one that would emphatically say no, in my opinion, who would be the other teams? I actually think the favorite, now the overwhelming favorite, is Orlando.
Oh, wow.
And Orlando is the team that Zach Lowe brought up and kind of smashed them, right? because they were talking about wild card hot seat. That was the topic. And Zach said, hey, Jamal Mosley, his seat's ice cold. He was one of the coaches of the year last year. He was second on Zach Lowe's ballot. But their offense is dreadful, and that's been true via injuries, or that's been true even when guys have come back, whether it's Paolo or Franz. When they've come back, their offense is absolutely dreadful. It's not creative, and he just bashed their offense for quite some time. He also mentioned there's a couple ways that you could fix it, one of which is trading for a fun, creative offensive guard. Well, I'll be damned. That all of that matches LaMelo Ball. I think Orlando, Doug, has become the overwhelming favorite. If there was a team to bet on to trade for LaMelo and LaMelo was going to leave Charlotte, it would be the Magic. San Antonio used to be there because we wanted to give Wemby a point guard. They already traded for De'Aaron Fox. I don't know if it would make much sense to go for LaMelo and De'Aaron and put him alongside Wemby. I think that'd be a fun lineup, honestly, but that's not what they're going to do. So Orlando has all their picks. They actually have Denver's top 5 protected pick this year. I assume that came in the Aaron Gordon trade. You have all of your first-round picks. You even have the Phoenix or Washington swap rights in 2026 in the first round. So they have the assets to go after LaMelo. If you look at their payroll, you have the salaries that could match up pretty easily. I mean, it's not hard to get there somehow, some way. You know, you could go after Wendell Carter Jr. You could throw whatever you needed to do to somehow get some of these guys and facilitate a LaMelo trade. But Doug, I think Orlando, if we start really having the rumors and the reports, they ramp up. Charlotte is a little more interested. They're fielding calls, but they're not actively shopping them, right? We keep climbing up the mountain into LaMelo being gone land. I would bet my money on Orlando. I'd go to FanDuel, and I'd bet my money on Orlando.
I think for what they need, it makes a lot of sense. The question would be, what would they be willing to give up? Because you're faced with two choices, really three choices if you're the Magic. You can assemble a bunch of role players together and make the salaries match, and then put a few extra picks on this deal. Or you can give up on one of Jalen Suggs or Franz Wagner, and that takes care of it. And then your books don't totally explode, which would be your third option, is that you find a way to do this. But then in 2 seasons, your books are going nuclear because you've got Jalen on the books for 32. You've got Franz on the books for 41 and 26, 27. And then you're going to have to extend Paolo Banchero and give him the max on top of the $40 million you're going to owe LaMelo Ball. So are the Magic not traditionally a team that love to go into the tax, and it would be a lot of risk to go into the tax. But I mean, if you could convince them to give up on one of Suggs or Wagner, that would certainly be interesting to me. I'm just not sure if you could do that because of all of the injury risks that come alongside with LaMelo Ball. So that would be the interesting point. And I put Orlando in a group of teams that I would call like offensively challenged contenders to take on LaMelo Ball. Because I think you could probably find one more team other than Memphis with a problem star that you could go problem star for problem star. We see that trade all the time in the NBA. Mm-hmm. But the offensively challenged contenders, I mean, I think you throw Orlando in there, you throw the Lakers in there, but I'm not sure the Hornets are ever going to do a deal with Rob Pelinka. So maybe if Rob Pelinka just goes and does something else and LA has a new GM next season, I don't see that happening. But then you could talk about an LA trade. And then one more team, sneak team here, the Houston Rockets. How about the Houston Rockets, who need an offensive punch? They would be trading, probably getting away from Fred VanVleet, going taller with their point guard position. I think that would be a lot more interesting to them. They would have enough defense already on that team. They could give up defense, which Charlotte would be interested in, and still have enough defense, I think, to put around LaMelo to then up their offense. Like if they fall out early because of offense in this Western Conference playoffs, I could definitely see Houston going after Kevin Durant. And if they miss on Durant, then maybe going with plan B, plan Ball.
I think Houston makes sense too. Orlando, they have all of the picks that you would want to work with. I don't think Houston has their 2026 first round pick from what I'm looking at here. They do have their 2020. They don't have their own, actually, 2025 first. That's either coming from OKC or Phoenix swap rights. So they have the right to swap their 2025, or OKC has the right to swap the 2025 first. The picks, I think you'd be more inclined to go with Orlando via the draft assets. And I think Houston might want to go for the big fish like Kevin Durant, Giannis, because Giannis is going to be fascinating. But Houston absolutely makes sense for LaMelo to help out their offense and then just keep some of the younger guys. You're pontificating, or it looks like you're thinking about something. What you think?
Well, on the Houston thing, I think what makes them an attractive destination for Kevin Durant or a facilitator of that trade is that they own a couple of Phoenix's first round picks that they would be giving back to Phoenix in a trade. I think I'm right about that. And so again, if they swing and a miss on Kevin Durant, or Kevin Durant doesn't want to go to Houston, wants to go somewhere else, and Phoenix abides by that, then again, you could be in line to get a couple of those Phoenix picks, which are going to suddenly be super attractive picks. If I throw a few more teams into this discussion, I would put them in a bucket of just like tank turnaround teams. The Toronto Raptors, the Utah Jazz. That would, sorry, LaMelo, if you get traded to the Utah Jazz,
God,
that would be.
Please don't do that to LaMelo.
Don't do that to my guy. He's done too much for the team. That would be unfair. I don't think Utah is quite ready for that kind of deal either. I think they're going to spend at least another season wallowing in losses before they make their pivot. But Brooklyn, another team. Finally, the Hornets could finally get Cam Thomas after all of this talking about it. They could finally trade for Cam Thomas. But I think Brooklyn could be another team that's going to go. I think they're going to go after Giannis. They might. That'd be crazy to go after KD again. But I think they're more willing to compete ASAP than Utah or Toronto. So keep an eye on Brooklyn as well.
I want to go back to Orlando for just a moment because you were talking about the Magic giving up on Jalen Suggs or Franz. You would make them say no to Franz. They would. Jalen, I think they'd give up.
Yeah.
I know that's the one. Now, I like LaMelo better than Jalen. I want LaMelo Ball more than Jalen Suggs on my basketball team.
Yeah, I think it's Jalen and something. You know?
No. I'm not. Yes, I'm continuing. I promise that was not a done sentence. Like I don't like that trade straight up. No, I'm saying yes, I like Jalen Suggs more than I like LaMelo. They're getting paid very similarly. You look at Jalen Suggs' contract; it goes up to 35 next year, and then it is actually a descending contract, though. So I shouldn't even say all that similarly. It's just front loaded, and then it descends. So it's a really nice contract. But of course, if Orlando is desperate enough, and man, it's be nice for that fan base to win. I'm sure there is some pressure to win, and it's a pretty clear fix. Suggs is the guy, and then you would get some level of picks back in return for LaMelo. And if you didn't want to give up Suggs or Franz like that, I don't even know if you can do it, right, Doug? I mean, I guess you could. I just thinking of the money at the top of the dome here, but you're talking about $35 million next year for Jalen, $38 million next year for Franz. You'd be one more. You'd have one more year left, except it's a team option. So now you're talking about Paolo making a ton of money. Also, they'd have to get rid of Jalen. I think that'd be the guy. So you'd have to talk yourself into Jalen Suggs in a Hornets uniform, and now all you have to quibble over is the amount of draft picks coming your way. But that's what the trade would look like. That's what it would look like.
Jalen Suggs hasn't been in the NBA quite as long, but would be recovering from a season-ending knee surgery 2 seasons ago. He was top 10. He was 10th in DPOY and Defensive Player of the Year voting. Just a weird season. I think he only played like 35 games or so. He shot nearly 40% from 3 2 seasons ago. Not as well this season, 31% on a little bit more volume from 3. So, yeah, I mean, this would not be an automatic win for the Charlotte Hornets.
So you use all that because you talk about like the swaps. If you're talking about somewhat problem swaps, but you have a little bit of this with Jalen and the injuries because he's had an injury history too. Yeah, give me your draft picks. This is what it comes down to. You want the money to match up. Fine. Give me Jalen. Give me your draft picks. You got to, I think, put one more contract in there. Like you've got some leverage here. Like the Hornets, we can be bad all year, baby. We can be bad every single year. We don't have any pressure. We have zero. The Hornets have the leverage.
Don't mess with us, buddy. We have not won a playoff series in over 20 years. We have not been to a playoff series in almost 10 years. We are fine with losing.
You merely adopted the darkness. We're still here. I have night vision. I've been in the darkness so long. Try to play hardball with us, bucko, because I'm ready to play some
Throw
hardball.
a bucko in there.
That's
just
right.
to let them know you're serious.
Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
We'll dive through the bucko satchel. The sicko satchel coming up next, and we'll get to the latest mock draft that Doug Branson brings to the table. That's still to come. Last segment, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center with all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. You can go beyond just managing money and start building wealth. You might be surprised at how much you're spending on things like food delivery or streaming subscriptions, but with Monarch, you'll see exactly where your money is going so you can budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, Monarch Money makes it easy to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for long-term goals, all in one place. And if you're managing money with a partner, it's never been smoother. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals together, and stay on the same page without the stress, too. Take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, Doug, a sicko satchel question before we get to your latest mock draft. What you have for the people?
All right, let's see. Davis of the 8th Bismack Brigade asks, looking at next year's projected roster, barring moves, which we all expect, is backup point guard the most critical offseason move outside of obviously nailing the draft? Backup point guard, is that the position that you think, let's just say everything stays scratch, they decide to keep Miles Bridges, they keep LaMelo Ball, backup point guard, most critical position?
No, I think shooting is. I think just finding a shooter, if you need a specific position on the floor, then I like some backup wing, but that's the problem. Every team needs backup wing, right? Everybody wants to go after the 3-and-D guy. We often say, "Hey, just get a 3-and-D guy." We often talk about it.
Get one.
That's how people talk about it, though. They're actually really hard to find, and it's how KCP, for instance, ends up making a lot of money with Orlando, and he ends up making, what is it, like over $20 million a year, something like that. Yeah, it's over $20 million a year. So that's how that happens. I would want to spend money on that type of player. They spent some of their money on Miles Bridges last season. Remember, you have Nurk on payroll next year because Phoenix wanted to salary dump him. So I don't know what kind of money they'd be working with in terms of how valuable one of those players would be. If they're out there, I'd love to go after a 3-and-D guy, but I think after that, backup point guard, especially if you're rolling with LaMelo again with his injury history, you have to be better prepared than what you were this year, and backup point guard matters.
See, that's where I am, because I agree. I think they need lots of shooting. I think if you're going to find a backup point guard, you probably want to value someone that can shoot. I don't think you can go with someone that is more defense, playmaker oriented and not have any shooting there. You've got to find someone that can do that. But I think having a backup point guard that you're confident could start and not be the star of your team, but could not be a detriment to you winning, if you're interested in winning at all. I think if you're interested in winning, you've got to have a backup plan to LaMelo Ball at this point in his career if you're going to hold on to him. And so as much as I think shooting, having a big that can shoot, maybe better than Nurkic, or if you want to hold on to Nurkic and hope that with a full offseason with the team that you can more fully integrate some things to get him open, then that's low priority. You're figuring out if Josh Green really is the answer at 3, or if you want to move him to the bench and find somebody that's a little bit more dynamic there. I mean, obviously, like star power, you would throw that because they don't have a lot of that right now. You'd throw that into the mix. But I kind of think Davis is right. I think you do, if you're interested in winning next year, not winning a title, but if you're just interested in trying to get back to the postseason next season, I'm not sure that the Hornets are, but if you are, I think backup point guard has to be a priority for sure.
I don't
think KJ Simpson is ready for that. KJ Simpson might be that in 2 seasons or might never be that because of his height, but he might turn into Fred VanVleet. I don't know, but it's not going to be next season.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to create some cap space for Charlotte. I mean, as much as we love Okogie, if you wanted to let Okogie walk, then okay. Same thing with Daquan Jeffries. Maybe you wanted to move on from him. Trey Mann's going to be the really interesting player to watch out for. So if you created some cap space that way, then maybe you could go after one of those 3-and-D wings, but you'd be sacrificing a few players for just one possibly bigger impact player, which I'd be okay with as much as I like Okogie and how fun he was for a little while. But I think those are the options you're looking for. Backup point guard, it still matters. Maybe, I don't know about backup, but, maybe Dylan Harper would be that guy if you ended up drafting him at 2. Let's get to the mock draft and see if Tankathon gives us a Dylan Harper. What you have for the latest mock draft here, Doug? And we're still going to sim the draft lottery odds, correct? Okay.
Yeah, it'll be important for this one because I'm actually going to go to a big board from the Ringer since to stay on theme for the show. Since we talked a lot about the Ringer acquiring Zach Lowe, we'll look at their big board. They don't have a mock draft out right now.
Is this Kevin O'Conman? This is Kevin O'Conman introduced for the first time, correct?
Didn't they? Okay. No, they got rid of Kevin O'Conman.
That's right.
That's the joke, right? The joke online is that Bill traded Kevin O'Conman for Zach Lowe, and that's a great trade. So I don't know who's running it. Does it say who's running it? It really doesn't. They don't really say a name here. I'll let you know if I find out something. But anyway, Tankathon, the Hornets still in the 3rd position, 14% odds at the number 1 overall pick. Let's sim it. And Charlotte moves down, but just 1 position to the 4th slot, which the Ringer, they've got Cooper Flagg on their big board at number 1, Dylan Harper at 2. They actually have VJ Edgecombe at 3, and so the Hornets in this position would take Ace Bailey, the Rutgers freshman, who they write is an athletic dribble pull-up artist, but concerns about his handle and decision-making loom large. There you go. Ace Bailey.
Okay.
1.3 blocks per, I think these are per 36 numbers.
Yeah.
1.3 blocks.
It feels like 4 is the absolute worst spot I'd be still okay with. Loosely quotation marks. I don't want to fall to 5. I want the option to turn down one of those top 4 guys because it feels like if we have if we have Cooper in a tier of his own, and then it feels like Dylan has somewhat separated himself as the second best prospect. But, so if Dylan is either at the top of tier 2 or in a tier by himself anyway, it feels like Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe kind of go back and forth. I want a top 4 option just for the security to say no to one of those guys at least. I don't want to be caught where I don't get the option of any of those guys. So 4, Doug, as much I'd be disappointed, but I don't want to fall any lower than 4.
Yeah, Ace Bailey, interesting in that I think he can take 2 paths in the NBA. He can become 3 paths, I guess. He could become an offensively focused player, a defensively focused player, or, hit all the things and become an all-NBA player. Like, that's the ceiling for him. But, he could become a Michael, and these are the player comps on the Ringer. He could become a Michael Porter Jr., or he could become a Jaden McDaniels. They also have Rudy Gay and Danny Granger listed as player comps as well. So those are fun player comps. I think if the Hornets if they stay at 3 or they fall to 4 or 5, I think they could easily look to trade back slightly. Like they could find a team at 6, 7, 8, 9 that fall in love with that and maybe acquire extra draft assets for the trade deadline or the next offseason. I could very realistically see that as an option.
We'll have plenty of draft convos, but we've had the like the idea of trading up for Cooper Flagg, it's not going to happen. But
That's not going to happen. No.
But what about trading up for Dylan Harper or one of these guys? Like I think that's an interesting one that we could have if there's some different evaluations. If the Hornets fall in love with one of these guys, would they pull the trigger in a way they didn't when Reed Shepherd was rumored to possibly be a future Hornet? So I don't know. We got a lot of time to go, though. How many more mock drafts? Like more than 50.
This is number 8. See, you got me doing math. I was told there would be no math. It's why I pursued this career. But I'm on day 8. We've got 61 more to go. Not 61 days. I know this is confusing. And when we do these things, I often accidentally make them confusing. It's not 61 more days until the NBA draft. There's actually significantly more days. There are only 61 more shows that I can release a mock draft to you, and we're on day 8 of 61.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. That should clear it up for everybody. And that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That does include YouTube. Check out Doug, his other pod, not OPP because that's other people's pods, but it's just his OP, his other pod. Locked On NBA, Matt Moore and Hayes he hosts with. Also check him out, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can find his text information in the show notes. I'm Walker Mehl. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.